am back and I am on the phone, and we're going to be having a conversation with Sandy Hicks today. You want to say hi?
Hi, people. Glad to be with you.
Okay, so if you remember, she interviewed me a couple of months, what was it, a month ago? And now we want to discuss the topic of witchcraft and how people that don't practice witchcraft view witchcraft, what they think about witchcraft, and how us as witches and practitioners of magic have to explain a lot of things to them so that they're not, afraid or confused or have the wrong idea. So I guess we can start out by Sandy telling us about her experience recently with her niece about, explaining witchcraft.
Right. Well, I just had a brief exchange with my niece, and she had indicated to me that witchcraft is a religion, and I came back and indicated that it was not a religion, and she came back and said it was. So we batted that back and forth with neither one of us changing our postures. And unlike me, I have to say, when I was a Christian, I was a fervent one, and I believed that damn near everything was evil except Christianity. And so I kind of understand my niece's posture, because I was quite beyond being overboard with my belief system and my spiritual posture. So I realized that how my niece feels, her sentiments are very similar to many other people, Christians and others in various assorted religions. So that's why I wanted to discuss it, because there's so much misunderstanding and unawareness about what it actually consists of.
Okay, so if she thinks that witchcraft is a religion, who is our deity? Like, who do we worship?
Well, we didn't get any further in our discussion, she and I have a lot of respect for her, because she's a very beautiful person, just unaware like I was. So we didn't go into any expanded conversations relative to the subject matter. So as far as that answer, I don't know.
I think most Christians that are not educated in witchcraft think that we worship the devil and that we work with the devil or demons or, evil and things like that. And, some of the ones that are educated, they understand that it's more about nature and the elements and alchemy and things like that. But still, they don't feel like we should be working with any other type of deity or god or goddess except for like God and Jesus and the angels. So I feel like a lot of people want to put their own definition on what witchcraft is, but you can't do that, because I feel like witchcraft is so much more and so many different types of witchcraft out there. You can't just put a label on it.
Exactly, because no two witches are alike.
Right. So, and it's also a path that you get to choose for yourself and create. You have a lot of freedom in when you practice witchcraft, and it is not a religion unless you are in a religion that practices witchcraft, like voodoo or Wicca, or any type of ancient spiritual religion that did incorporate magic. It's not a religion to practice magic, but there are religions that contain practicing magic.
Right. And I recall one conversation or one video that you did, and you were talking about what hoodoo was as opposed to voodoo, and then you mentioned some aspects of Santeria. So there's so many variations, and a lot of the practices come from the Native Americans and the indigenous people as well, dealing with the herbs and the spices and the crystals and so forth.
Right. Well, if you go back into, the Bible, they used frankincense and myrrh, they used herbs, they did rituals, they did animal sacrifice. So the Bible is very pagan in the beginning of the Bible. And I feel like before religion was created, a lot of people were pagan, and they had to incorporate the pagan ways into Christianity, into religion, in order to get the people to, accept it. But, if you go and sacrifice an animal now and, you're a Christian, they're going to call you, evil. But they did that in the Bible.
Exactly. And then some people have the understanding, misguided, that witches wear pointy hats and they sacrifice animals, and some of them likely do, but that's not comprising all witches as far as the sacrifice of animals and so forth. Or people that practice metaphysics, I should say, not just witches.
Right. If you sacrifice an animal in your magic or your craft, there's a purpose for that. A lot of people that practice voodoo, they sacrifice animals. Santeria practitioners, they work with animal sacrifice, and most of the time the animal is either cooked or whatever, but sometimes they're not, depending on what you're doing the magic for. But still, if you're walking around with a leather purse and you eat meat, somebody sacrificed an animal for you to look good and to be full. So I don't, like, if someone does it for magic, what's the difference?
That's an excellent point, and I hadn't really thought about it on those terms, but it makes reasonable sense how you express that. So yes, that they actually, when you really get down to the nuts and bolts, there is no difference.
Right. I understand, like, if you're a vegan and you're for animal rights and you don't own anything leather or you don't eat meat, of course you would be upset that people are going around killing animals for food and clothing and magic. But to most people, that's just something that is in their culture and in their religion and in their magic. That's what they do. Some people use different methods to get what they want in magic, and it has nothing to do with a religion unless they are in a religion. So I think a lot of people will say, oh, you're a witch, so you must sacrifice animals, you must worship the devil, you must do this. So what would you say to someone who just assumed that just because you're a witch or you practice magic, you do all those things? What would your answer be?
Well, you know what? I have a comical account to share. I told this young guy, I guess he's in his early 20s, in the hood, and I told him I was a witch, and he asked me where was my broom.
Where was your broom?
Yeah, he said, where's your broom? I said, I don't ride a broom. But that's just the perception that he had. But for the most part, I don't even tell people I'm a witch. I use terminology like I'm a mystic or metaphysical, or I like alchemy, because when you use that term, which for some people, it is an instant affront, and it shuts some people down. When they hear that word, which they like, oh no, that's all I need to hear. So to come at them a little milder, and most times I don't volunteer. If I get into discussion and people ask questions, I do answer. As a matter of fact, I had a Christian friend that when I was in the Christian world, she hit me up in my inbox the other night, and she said, you used to be sold out to Jesus. She said, what about salvation? And I was very kind to her. I told her I just couldn't tell her in a short, way, what led me away from that particular spiritual posture. But a lot of Christians and other religious people, they believe in this salvation thing, that you have to be saved. And because that was ingrained in us growing up, especially a lot of African American people. Mm-hmm. And the situation with the salvation, someone on Facebook put a post that she was dealing with this guy, and she tried to work it out with him, dating him. He was a Christian. Then she decided she couldn't work with someone. She did with someone in that way that was lost. And I said, lost? I said, people that don't understand occult activities and metaphysics doesn't make them lost. I would say they're limited, but not lost. But I thought that way too when I was a Christian. Everybody was lost except Christians.
Right. And I'm married to someone who doesn't practice his who doesn't practice his magic and or occult anything, and I feel like I have the advantage because I do. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, I feel like for me, it's not a big deal. But for a lot of people, it would be, because when you are fresh into your spirituality, when you are passionate about your spirituality and your path, you want to share all these new learnings with everyone, all this knowledge with someone, especially who's close to you. And a lot of people will break up with their spouse, or start having issues with their spouse at this time, because they want to be on the same spiritual level as the person that they're with. And just because they've changed, just because the person has changed and the other person has not changed their spiritual views, it becomes a problem. And I have to talk to a lot of people about this. I have to tell them, you can't force people to believe what you believe. You have to either let them come on their own, or just leave them be. Why not have the advantage?
Yeah, but see, you're fortunate, Letitia, that you have a husband who does not give you pushback. And because some people get serious pushback from their significant others, especially if they both started out as Christians.
I didn't start off as a Christian though. I always talked about, I don't like church. Whatever. I would watch like Joel Osteen with him on TV, and I would be all about the law of attraction and The Secret and stuff. But I was like, well, I don't believe all that other stuff, because I've seen too much in my lifetime and gone through so much in my lifetime that I just can't get with the Christian thing. So he already knew that when I was, when we married. But when I started practicing magic and all that kind of stuff, he just thought it was a hobby. He didn't care. He did not care at all. But some people would, and they would be like, I don't want you raising my children like that. I don't want that in the house.
Exactly.
But you see, he was never overly religious to begin with,
Right.
So that's why we didn't have a problem. If he was overly religious and he was, talking all crazy to me and blah, 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 we probably wouldn't be together. You know what I'm saying? But
you're one of the fortunate ones.
Yeah. So, when you start having bad luck and, your wife is upset, you got to think twice.
I can believe that. but I talk to some Christians who say, their husbands won't allow any kind of magical practices going on in their household. You're not bringing those candles up in here. You're not burning that incense up in here. So, they get, some significant pushback, and therefore they feel, kind of trapped because they want to get along with their spouse or significant other, but they're not allowed to practice openly in their own homes.
Right. Well, I didn't need any candles or magical items to do any type of magic. You know what I'm saying? I tell him, look, this is for this is for my YouTube channel. This is I tell him this is for my clients, and this is for the job that you have. You think you got that job on your own?
Okay, good point.
Okay, I tell him, look, I do spells for you too. You better be thankful. I said, you wouldn't be where you are today if you hadn't met me. And I take credit for him. I do.
I love it.
I was like, you don't think you got here on your own, do you?
But I was going to ask you about, some time ago you did a video, and you said when you and your husband had a little separation issue, and that you had got the house that he picked out, and the house was haunted or something you had said. Am I recalling correctly? And you said that you weren't going back to him, but you weren't going back to that house. What was up with that house?
That house was built on a slave plantation. Okay. And I'm very sensitive to energies. Okay. When I was growing up, I lived in a haunted house as well that was built over Native American ground. And I had a lot of paranormal experiences in that home. And I was starting to have the same type of experiences in the other house, but it was much darker. And I even did research where on the land that I lived. And we lived right behind a creek where alligators and wild boars were, right outside of our gate. And I read a lot, and this was after I've had all the experiences, because I knew something was up. This is after I started having experiences, seeing shadow figures, feeling lots of angry energy. And it was affecting everyone in the house, So I researched, and the creek behind my house is where a lot of runaway slaves would actually get shot, executed, fed to the alligators, blah 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 blah. Because I used to live on some land that was owned by, I think it was Stephen F. Austin, and he had a huge plantation. And They even named the neighborhood after, that. And, you don't really think of anything when you hear, oh, such and such plantation. But I did. I'm like, what? Is this a real plantation? Was it, And you just think people just
Right.
name it that because we're in the South, right? But I actually did
Right.
research on it and I found out what it was. And, you know, everyone on our street, it wasn't just us, but everyone on our street had issues. Our
Really?
neighbors, they moved, they separated. The neighbors down the street, the husband left and separated. Like
Wow.
3 people who had bought houses, nice houses, left. So there was
Wow.
something there. And I also feel like, once I got out of that environment, once he got out of that environment, everything went perfect and straight back to normal.
Flourishing.
Yeah.
So you couldn't smudge it when you being a witch. You couldn't smudge it away or whatever because people talk about smudging and cleansing and all
No,
that.
that energy was so bad you couldn't live there. You know, it's one thing to live somewhere and smudge it away, but hundreds of years of torment, anger,
Okay.
energy that's built up, especially by running water, that is an
Ooh.
attraction for spirits. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
So
Okay.
you don't want to live anywhere near there.
So how long did you live there before you realized you just could not tolerate it?
We lived there for, let me see, 6 months.
Oh, really? That's
No. It was longer than that. It was about 3 or 4 years.
Oh, you lived there about 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years, and we bought that house, or he bought the house, but we were married, so we.
Right. I understand. So
And he was paying mortgage, and I just couldn't do it. Most
Okay.
women would be like, we're gonna stick this out because it was just like one of those horror, those paranormal stories where the wife said, we can't live here no more, and I'm leaving. I
And the
don't
ghost
care if
said,
you bought
"Get
this
out."
house. I don't care how much you invested in this house, because we had that house built. It wasn't just on the
Oh.
market. We had it built. So this was like straight
Oh.
up, no, nothing on this land.
Oh.
And all the neighbors, this was a brand new neighborhood. So
Development.
it wasn't an old house, it was the land.
Ooh.
So we were like, I told him, I'm gonna do whatever you need to do. So he sold the house.
Okay.
And
Wow.
we got back together right after that. It was the energy in that house.
Did he believe that? Did you tell him that? And did he believe it if you did?
He don't believe nothing like that. I just told him, look, I didn't like the energy in that house. You had us living on a plantation. What did you expect? You know. So I'll say my little piece. It's up to him to believe it or not.
Right.
But after we left, it's like a weight lifted. It was like a
Things started
weight.
flourishing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, did I hear you correctly on the video that you have family ties in Louisiana?
Yeah, my mom's side of the family is from Louisiana. My grandma's from Louisiana. Like, I have family that still live there.
Oh.
So yeah, that's
And
what.
so, do y'all know anything about Marie LaRose since you have roots there?
Yeah, I mean, I've done my own research on her, and she was she was like more in New Orleans, right? My family is more from like Alexandria area, so
Oh,
not
okay.
in New Orleans, but close. But I'm
Okay,
sure
okay.
I'm sure they heard of her too, and my mom said that her aunt used to like practice voodoo on a lot of people, and everybody was scared of her. And I'm like, my mom, like, because my mom was raised Catholic, so they were taught to fear all that stuff. But
Right.
her aunts and her grandmother, they all practiced it.
Okay, so it's in your bloodline. Okay, not too far away in your bloodline too.
Right, and they also they had a lot of Native Americans that lived in Louisiana, and her grandmother was actually a Native American as well. So she had a
Oh.
mix. So they probably did just hoodoo. You know what I'm saying? It was just a mix of everything.
Okay. Yeah. Does your father now live in the States, or is he living in his native Puerto Rico now?
Oh, he lives in Florida now, close
Oh,
to
he
Puerto
lives in
Rico,
Florida.
but Florida.
So have you been there to visit? Have you? I know you all had just reunited maybe sometime last year. Have you been to Florida to visit, or has he come to Texas?
I'm probably gonna go next year, and I'll take my kids to Disney World, and
Ooh.
we'll probably visit him on that trip. He said that he can get us some free passes to the park,
Oh, right. That is
so
cool.
that'll be good. And Yeah, so probably next year sometime.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, I know you're gonna take pictures and do your video in like you normally do. You know?
Maybe. Yeah, probably.
Okay, and now also I'm going back to some of these religious institutions that some of them disdain the occult activities, but some of them don't, I guess, focus on the fact that when they go to church, they have altars, and we have altars in the metaphysical world. They also do rituals, communion, tithing. They also burn candles. So I don't get, and they have regular services, which is like a ritual practice in itself. So I don't get why some of them, judge, in ways that are kind of harsh those of us that do some of the same things as they do. What's the difference in when they do it and when we do it?
I think it's because they're doing it in the name of God and Jesus, and we're not. For the most part, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, is there a such thing as a Christian witch? Is there a such thing as a Christian witch?" And then, there's a lot of debate on that. And I like to say, I don't want to offend anyone, but I like to say you can be a Christian anything, because I'm not trying to offend anybody now, especially Christians. You can be a Christian anything, because majority of Christians don't follow their own religion. So
that's very true.
You can be a Christian atheist if you wanted to. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
That's true. That's
because
true. You know what?
that is the least disciplined religion. It's the least disciplined major religion on the planet. So if you want to do whatever you want, you don't even have to be a witch. You can basically be a Christian and just judge people and tell them what they need, what you were taught to tell them, and then
Right.
go do the same thing yourself. But
Right, that's a good point. Your point is quite valid and needs to be said. And sometimes, like I said, you don't want to deliberately offend anyone, but sometimes offending people cannot be avoided to get the truth, distributed, so to speak. 'Cause I have a person, and he was severely criticized by somebody else for not being a forgiving type of person. And I said, well, you don't even take your own religion seriously, so why are you criticizing her when, I know, and I know that you're not even taking your own religion seriously, so why are you judging us, other folks who do take ours seriously? I'm not religious, but I take metaphysics seriously more so than he does his religion,
Right. And the thing is, the reason why a lot of Christians don't take their religion seriously is because they weren't given a choice. It was just given to them, and they were told this from ever since they can remember. So to them,
Right.
it's like it's the truth. They don't question it. They're still gonna do what they're gonna do, but in the back of their mind, that's their control mechanism. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like when you do an experiment and you do different methods to see if the outcome will change, but you have a control. Right. You have a control to compare it to. So that's what Christians are to me. They're an experiment with a control to compare it to. Oh, you're out of line. You need to do better. Okay, look at the control. Look at the example of the control. This is what you're supposed to be. Okay, get back in line. And they might mess up over and over and over, but as long as they know what the correct way is, they feel that's going to save them. And for me, I feel like that's not enough. That's not enough for me to be fulfilled with. So I would go and look for more answers, more knowledge, more information, instead of trying to live by a control or a set of rules that are basically not, something that people or humans are going to ever really truly abide by anyway.
And also, now I have encountered a few, comparatively speaking, Christians who do take their religion seriously. They're sincere, sincerely wrong, and I shouldn't say wrong, I don't want to use the word wrong, but sincerely limited, but nonetheless, they are sincere about their religion. So I've met a few, but the bulk of the ones that I've met, and I was in that realm for many years, didn't take their religion seriously. I just want to interject that there were a few that I met that did the best they could to do so,
Right.
But the thing about, and also when I first came out of Christianity, when I departed Christianity, I got on like this bandwagon of bashing Christians and, kind of like demeaning them. And I matured and evolved out of that. I'm at the place now where I don't have a right to trespass on their spiritual postures, nor will I allow them to tolerate, I won't tolerate them trespassing trespassing on my spiritual posture. But at one point, I kind of was, doing verbal and written beatdowns on them, and I determined that was not in order.
No.
It's not right.
Right. Because they don't know any better. So it's kind of
Right.
like bashing someone who don't know any better. It's kind of like
Right.
my fourth grade daughter bashing my second grade daughter for not knowing how to do the type of math she knows how to do. She just haven't
Exactly.
learned it yet. And also, I feel like there's a lot of Christians out there that should actually be non-denomination. They might claim Christian, but I feel like a lot of Christians aren't following, their rules. So why claim to be a Christian when you can just say I'm non-denomination, which means, I'll read, I'll study, I'll learn about God, but I'm not claiming one religion over the other. I feel like if more people were, at least that open-minded, they could, they could be more respected or believable when they walk out and try to explain, religion to someone, if they're not representing their religion. Yeah, if they're not representing their religion, then no one's going to take them seriously.
Right, and that's a very valid point. And then the credibility, as far as I'm concerned, is shot. If you're talking the talk, you're not walking the walk, then as far as I'm concerned, your credibility is shot.
Right. And if you've ever watched Oprah interview all these mega church pastors, she always asks them the same question, and she always asks them, "What do you think about homosexuality?" Or what do you think about, gay and lesbian? Do you think they're going to get into heaven or what? Blah, 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 blah. So she asked all of them that, right?
Right.
And, T.D. Jakes, he said no, because the Bible says, it's wrong. And then she asked Joel Osteen, and he said, well, I believe God loves everyone, and blah, 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 blah. So, I think T.D. Jakes got a lot of backlash behind that. Now he's saying he's welcoming homosexuality and saying it's okay, and God is tolerant and blah 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 blah. So when his money changed, his answer changed. So Christians don't follow their own rules when it doesn't suit them. So I feel like, Joel Osteen, he gave the political answer because he's about his money. He ain't finna lose no tithes and offerings. He's like, everybody is going to heaven, okay? Everybody. You're going to heaven? Okay? Everybody's going to heaven. Come get, I need this money.
Right.
So, according to they would call, Joel Osteen, I call him, all he does is basically recite the book The Secret and just throw some Bible verses in there every once in a while.
And he has a book called Your Best Life.
Yeah, he's about manifesting. He's not about, God and Jesus. He'll throw them in there, but basically I have heard him quote The Secret at least 50 times in his sermons, okay?
And he doesn't do fire and brimstone sermons.
I know. So, he don't do that. Everybody going to heaven. Just keep his money flowing, okay? T.D. Jakes learned the hard way. He had to go and, say it later on. Okay, I welcome homosexuality. God, no sin is greater than the other. Come, blah, 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 blah. So, but the Bible blatantly says, do not lay with another man as you would lay with a woman.
Exactly.
But you have homosexual Christians.
But
you know what I'm saying?
And a lot of them are in the choirs and choir directors and so forth.
Yeah.
Some of them are very talented. Artistically, they're extremely talented.
Right. If this was another religion like, Islam, they would be killed.
They would stone them or something like that. Yeah.
So you can't dilly-dally with some religions, but with Christianity,
that's very true.
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. That is so, but you know what? I will say this about T.D. Jakes. When I was a Christian, eventually I left Christianity on a gradual basis, and I dropped the various ministries I was watching on TV, TBN, and so forth. But T.D. Jakes was my last holdout. I got to have T.D. Jakes here. One thing I'll say about him, he is extremely charismatic. He is an excellent speaker. So it took me a while to let him go, and I don't watch him now, but he has a talent. if he ever leaves Christianity, I don't know how he would blow up, because the man, he is a draw, and he has a way about him that is just an innate talent.
Right. I think he has a talk show now on Oprah's network.
It was canceled. It got canceled.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I didn't watch.
Maybe he couldn't cross over successfully and keep his Christian banner waving. I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it probably didn't have a lot of ratings, because religion is not selling these days unless everybody's going to heaven. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I've been reading articles. I read a recent article where it said somewhere in the UK, I forget the number, I think it was out of every 26 people, only one is converting to Christianity. Christianity is waning and it's dropping off. I did read that in the UK. And as we've noticed in some of these metaphysical groups, the metaphysical interest has increased, because these groups, it seems like every time I turn around, there's a new metaphysical group showing up on Facebook, and I'm like, it's just too many. It's overwhelming to me, so I can't be joining all these groups or being added to them and staying in them. But I've noticed the increase. Have you noticed the increase in adding these Facebook metaphysical groups?
Yes, because like a lot of people say that this is the time of revelation, and everybody thinks revelation means the end of the world, but basically revelation is things are being revealed. The truth is being revealed, and more people are leaving religion. Like, even if you read in the Bible and they talk about revelation, they talk about how the church is going to be punished, or nothing is, the people are going to turn away from the church and blah 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 blah. That's all in there, because with knowledge, in revelation, people are not going to subscribe to like such old beliefs that are not fulfilling them anymore.
Right. The limitations are just not fulfilling people.
Right. And I didn't mean old beliefs, but I meant like you said, limited beliefs, or beliefs that no longer apply to this day and age. People are scientists now. They have discovered all these things that will kind of say that a lot of the stuff in the Bible could have already been done through technology, through this and that, through alchemy. So none of the miracles in the Bible anymore are even miracles, basically.
Okay, good point. And a lot of what they call New Age is actually revisiting what was being done in the indigenous communities from way ages ago. A return to some of those things that they were doing in the indigenous populations, like the herbs and all of that, and the plants and all that. A lot of that stuff, it's not New Age, it's just revisiting or returning to some of the roots of what our ancestors did.
Right. Yeah, it's not really New Age. I mean, they'll put a New Age spin on it, and they'll add their own little 2 cents on it, but everything stemmed from the ancient times. So
exactly. And I was in go back to something about some of these Christians. This is not all Christians by any means, but I've met some Christians who have mean temperaments overall, not just some days, but on a consistent basis. Some mean temperaments, just mean people, just mean.
Oh,
but they'll claim Christ as their Lord and Savior. I'm like, well, I can't tell, because your disposition is so honorary and mean. But at the same time, they have criticized us witches and metaphysical folks. I have met some of the nicest, most loving, most generous and compassionate witches, you being one of them. And I can call out Jasmine, I think I'm pronouncing her last name right, Ateen, and some other ones. I have encountered some of the sweetest people that you ever want to, engage with. But yet I've met some Christians who are mean and just lacking in love flow, but yet they want to harshly judge us who practice the occult. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think being a Christian has anything to do with how you treat people and how you love and how you come across to other people. I think that's your own personality. You can have a mean witch or a nice witch. You can have a mean Christian or a nice Christian. But I feel like everybody has their own freedom, their own free will. They can do what they want to do. I know a lot of people who hide behind Christianity, who hide behind things as an excuse to be evil and mean. They can do anything they want. And as soon as you call them out, well, God is on my side, and I'm saved, and the Lord said, they can justify their evil. Yeah, they can justify their attitude and their evil with being a Christian. Just like, when you have these relationships, some of these women are like, I want my man to be Christian, go to church every Sunday, be this type of man. And, some of these guys want to watch football on Sunday. They don't want to go to church every Sunday. They don't want to be on the deacon board. And then these women get upset because their man won't fall in line with religion. And, the man will leave them. And the woman will be like, well, that's fine. I don't need you anyway. I got Jesus, And so, Jesus is her eternal.
And a lot of churches have majority of women sitting up in them, too.
Yeah, so a lot of women will actually lose a good partner over, Jesus or their religion. And some guy, a lot of people will say, oh, the foundation of your relationship should be God, this and that. And I'm like, if the foundation of my relationship was God, then I wouldn't be with anybody, because I feel like, God has nothing to do with the relationship I'm in. It's me and the other person. I can't pull stuff out the sky and argue with my husband because God said this. You know what I'm saying? I can because he believes in God. So that's why I say I have the advantage. I can say, well, God said a good man is a provider, and he gives his wife, he supplies every need for his wife, and da 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 da. Yeah, I will use it against him just because that's what he believes. Because that's that's what religion is for, to control people. So if he gonna be religious, I'm gonna use that religion on him. You know what I'm saying?
That's strategic. That's what you call strategic activity.
Now, if he was awake and he practiced magic, he would be like, oh, I don't have any set rules. I don't have any limitations. You go out and get a job, But since he was raised in the church and I have the Bible and he's so-called Christian or religious, I can use that for my advantage. And that's exactly what society does. So I know, if he get out of line, just go get some Bible quotes. The Bible say, and he get right back in line. Swoop. You don't want to go to hell, do you?
I have a dear Christian friend who's one of the Christians and who's pretty liberal, and she still lets me quote unquote be her friend, even though she knows I'm in the metaphysics. But she wrote a book about 4 or 5 years ago, and she's believe it or not, she's a Christian virgin, and so she's with this guy now, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with their relationship. But anyway, she said when she was out there in the dating world as a Christian, she said every Christian guy that she dated wanted to have sexual intercourse with her. Yet that's one of the big things Christians tout is don't have sex before marriage. She said every Christian guy she dated wanted to have sex with her.
Well, yeah, of course, because they don't follow their own religion. But I don't take Christianity serious because the Christians don't even take it seriously. So why should I?
Most of them probably don't. But I was in a metaphysical store, Letitia, and I met this woman. She was shopping for crystals or whatever, and she said that down south, she said they would go to church on Sunday, and then during the week in the open they would disdain the occult, but then on the down low, in secret, they would come and get work done by the witches.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of Christian clients. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, because what they're doing, obviously they feel like it don't work. So they come, a lot of people are just Christian for show, for jobs, for politics, for their spouse, for their family, for their, networking. Like you said, a lot of people are Christian because that's what people expect them to be. But they do other stuff they do their own thing, so that's why I said, there is a such thing as a Christian witch because Christians can be whatever they want. They don't have to follow their own religion. It's just more of, okay, if you don't believe the same way we do, you're out of our circle and you're not one of us anymore. So a lot of people do it for social reasons and all that kind of stuff. And I perfectly understand.
Keeping up appearances. But so you actually do spell work for people that go to church on the regular. That is so interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I have reverends in my inbox asking me to go to lunch, trying to holler.
Oh my goodness.
And they know I'm a witch. I'm on Facebook all day, every day.
I want to go to lunch with a witch.
Well, it's just like this. Men are men. No matter if they're Christian or not, they're going to be men. Women are going to be women, no matter what they believe. If people were very serious about their religion or whatever, they would stick to it. But like I said, they're not. That's why I don't let a lot of people get to me. And, when they say, oh, witchcraft is a religion and you worship the devil and blah, 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 blah. I say, well, at least I stick to mine. At least I stick to my religion,
You're faithful and loyal to yours, yes. Well,
I'm being silly.
That's your spiritual posture, but I don't think you practice religion, though, right?
Right. No, I don't practice religion at all.
Right.
I'm more of an eclectic witch, and I will take,
Right.
bits and pieces from here and there. But,
Exactly.
I don't feel like witchcraft is a religion. I feel like it's a craft, and it stemmed from religion. The first people on the planet, on the earth, they practiced a lot of different types of spirituality, and they incorporated magic into it. And then it became
the cosmos and things, and astronomy and astrology and the planetary issues and so forth.
Yeah, so their religion and their magic was probably science, alchemy and things like that.
Yes.
And then people did not learn; they didn't have all the knowledge to properly explain it. So they would make up tales and things to remember it because they couldn't write a lot of times back then.
Yes.
So they had to pass it on in stories, and they would have to put the symbols and all these codes in the story.
Right.
So the story had to be entertaining as well as contain the knowledge. So
Right.
the story then became the religion, which became believed literally.
Right, and they made a lot of the Bible stories that are actually fiction. They made them into real life stories when in fact they're allegory of in a lot of the cases
Right.
in the Bible, and people believe those things were realities when in fact they were not.
Right. That's why the Bible can actually be broken down by the occult.
Yes.
And when your holy book can be broken down by the occult and codes taken out of it and alchemy taken out of it, then you have a problem. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
right.
if I can break down your holy book with alchemy and occult knowledge, then how is that beneficial to be believed literally? If I can break it down.
Right, and you stake your entire life on it.
Right. Like I can't. It's kind of like it's kind of like you get a car. Okay, it's a nice car. It's a Lexus. So you got a Lexus. Okay. You open that Lexus up, you got Toyota parts. Okay, you just paid you just paid a lot of money for a Toyota with an L on it. So basically, that's how a lot of Christians feel once they wake up. Like, dang, I've been duped. They did tell me the truth. I invested all this time and energy in believing this, and it's just not true.
Exactly, and when I came out, I found as time went on and progressed, I realized that now I am living for the first time in my life my actual authentic self.
Right.
Yeah,
you can be yourself more when you're not bound by religion.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I label the terminology, I call it being a prisoner of my perception. Mm-hmm. Because that's what a lot of people are hung up in, being prisoners of their perceptions. And that's where I was. And the more I researched and dug and examined and investigated, the more free I became. And of course, we still live and learn and amend as we go forward on our journeys. But I feel more authentic than I ever have in my entire life. And it's such a feeling of ecstasy and delight to finally come into your authentic self and not make any apologies or let anyone get me off my square. This is my square,
Right.
And I'm a compassionate, sweet, kind, generous person. However, if push comes to shove, I do know how to pull out my quote-unquote gangster, if I have to do it. If you push me in the corner, you damn skippy,
Right. And I feel like a lot of people that, are transitioning from Christianity into a spiritual path or a magical path, it is very important for them to read, research, and learn instead of just jump right in, because a lot of times that fear from religion is still stuck with them, and they kind of talk themselves out of it, or they start fearing things and then they go right back to Christianity. And I feel like it's because they weren't educated enough and they didn't research and read enough. They just went straight to the magic because, praying doesn't work for them. So then they just jump right into magic, and then that doesn't work because they don't know how to make it work through the knowledge that they were supposed to obtain before that. So if you're transitioning, make sure you read, understand, a lot of things, not just spell work, but symbolism, alchemy, spirituality, ancient pagan religions, customs from ancient times and things like that. Why this means that, Don't just hop into it and get discouraged and go right back to Jesus because you didn't take the time to invest in your spiritual knowledge. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and a big part too is sacred geometry. A lot of people need to learn about that because so much in our world is sacred geometry from ancient times even to now. The architecture and so much, you can't escape sacred geometry living on this planet and beyond.
Right. And I find that when a Christian is transitioning out of their religion, they're going to have a lot of questions, and they're going to have a lot of, blank spaces in their mind to be filled, because once you dump something off, you need to fill it with something. And if they don't ever fill it with anything, they're going to still feel empty. So it's important to read, research, watch YouTube videos or something, because if you don't have anything to fill the spot that, you dumped, then you're not going to feel good in spirituality either,
Exactly, and that is a very excellent point. And when I first started coming out, a friend of mine, we pretty much left Christianity together, and he was kind of like a little bit ahead of me. But one thing I appreciate that he did tell me, and I try to tell people all the time, I shouldn't say I try, I do tell folks all the time, or a lot of the time, don't just base your spiritual journey on what someone else tells you should be done, like use this recipe or read this book or do this or do that and clap your hands 3 times and turn around 5 times and light 8 candles. I'm like, no, what you do is you use other people's experience as like a framework or a blueprint, but you're going to have to get your signature style established.
Right.
And that's what he told me. He said, I'm going to tell you this. He said, but you're going to have to do your own personal research because no two of us think alike, but no two of us are alike. He said, so it's critical, vital that you get guidance from others, but don't depend on them as your have-all, be-all. You've got to get your personal signature style, unique journey established.
Right. And that's so true. And I feel like, what would you say to someone who is, a child or like a teenager or a young adult who wants to be, spiritual and in the craft, and their parents are very against it? Like, how would you explain that to a parent? Like, Mom, I'm leaving Christianity. I'm going to start, I'm on a spiritual journey and path, blah, 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 blah. I practice magic. I burn candles. How would you tell someone that who raised you Christian?
Well, striking that you mentioned that, and before I answer that, I'm going to mention a situation where it's a young man in one of the Facebook groups, and I think he must be in his 20s or whatever. Anyway, he came home one day, and his father, I think he said, threw out all of his metaphysical tools. He just went through his room and just and just disposed of it all. He was just devastated, and he couldn't do anything about it because he was living in his parents' home. But then I shared with him later on. Okay, since that happened, you're going to have to learn how to practice your magic in ways that are not obvious. Like, for instance, get you maybe some house plants and put some crystals in the dirt in the pot, or get you some spices from the kitchen and that look innocent, don't look metaphysical. Get you some oils and act like they're colognes or whatever. So I was trying to give him ways. Go out and get some acorns and pine cones from the earth, and that looks innocent enough. I was trying to give him ways that he could do that without offending his parents. But as far as telling a parent, I would probably do it as calmly and as reasonably and as respectfully as I could muster, still being aware that depending on what kind of parent it is, you have those kind of parents who are real bullish in their dispositions and may, get to the point where they're like, well, you can't be here and do that or whatever. So, it depends on the disposition of the various parents. You have some parents be like, well, this keep it on the down low, or keep it kind of like, don't make it too obvious. So I think there's no one size fits all or no one answer.
Well, yeah, that's true. But there are psychological ways to get someone to agree with you or to get your way. And I'm all about that mentalism. So my tip is, say something really bad that's worse than what you do, and they'll be so devastated by that, like, oh my God, I'm a devil worshiper now, I worship Satan, and this is my path. They're gonna be devastated, okay? And they're gonna be like, no, I don't want you to do that, God this, God that, and then like come back a couple days later, yeah, you're right, I thought about it, so now I'm just into like nature magic. And they'll be relieved. They'll be like, okay, that's better.
I like that.
They'll be like,
I love that.
so
That's a great
it's just burning candles, right? You're not going out, worshiping the devil and killing kids, are you? Like, no, it's just nature and candles and manifesting. Okay, that's better. They're not gonna say, because look, you can go right back to and nothing against Satanists or devil worshippers, but if your parents are against witchcraft in general and you break out you're a devil worshiper and you're a Satanist, and then 2 days later you say, okay, you're right, I'm gonna just practice nature magic instead, you were right, Mom, and now they feel like they've helped you, but really you just tricked them into practicing magic.
That's really good. I love how you did that in a strategic manner. So yes,
I've been married so long, I'm very strategic.
Adept at that than I am, because that way it's an approach that can work effectively 9 times out of 10. It would.
Right, and also, like, if you're like, these are psychological tricks that people use all the time to get their way. They give you something worse, and then when you say no, then you say what you really want to do, and then they'll be okay. I find there's lots of videos on this type of situations, but and another way, is if you get around a bunch of people that are into what you're into and you get your parents singled out, they're going to be like, oh, well, I guess it's not so bad, because when you're in a group, you usually agree or semi-agree with what they're saying, especially if there's other people that can educate her or the parent on that subject and say, oh, it's not that bad, it's not what you're thinking. Then they'll be more, accepting of it. If you get like 5 people that practice witchcraft and they just seem ordinary and like they have decent, jobs and things like that, and you bring your mom in that environment, and then you break out and say, look, I practice, magic, and these are my friends, I just want you to meet them. The mom's not going to say, no, you can't do that in front of all them people. She's going to be like, oh, because they're going to be respectable. Yeah, you get.
Okay, and what about if they talk about, if you have an altar and they criticize the altar, you could come back and say, well, churches have altars, Mom, and churches burn candles, the Catholics burn them on the regular, and you can come back and say, y'all do communion, that's a form of ritual, so what about coming back with that? Like, the tithing is a ritual, Mom, or Dad, so how do you think that would pan out?
Well, like I said, you have to be educated when people confront you. That way you can teach them, and like, knowledge alleviates fear. So if they know what the altar represents, they might not be so upset about it. The altar, you can say, yeah, the altar is in church, and then you can also say the altar is representing my subconscious mind. It also represents the 5 elements that I'm working with. It's not about worshiping anything. It's about a sacred space that I can come to and, concentrate, manifest, meditate, just like they have a church that you can go and do that in. It's a sacred space,
Right.
So you just explain it very non-magical. You just explain it very spiritual and very
logical.
Like, yeah, like, oh, it's just, this is where I do my magic. No, that's not going to work. This is a sacred space where I come to relax, meditate, and just, be in tune with my thoughts.
Right.
That's, because, Buddhists, they have altars. If you go into any Asian restaurant or nail shop, you'll see their altar to Buddha, but they don't say nothing about that.
Candles burning too.
Right. They'll just go, oh, that's nice. and walk out. But then they go home and see one in their house. What the heck? You know? Oh, you just saw an altar, remember? Buddha?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly.
Why you mad?
Now, I've seen some debates, even some metaphysical folks say they still use Jesus as a deity, and some people have disagreed and say, well, I have leg bar. I don't do deities personally. Like I said, I use the aspect of certain, I wouldn't say deities, but I use aspects of some of the angels, Gabriel and Archangel Michael, but I don't get into the necklaces and Oshuns and all that. Not disrespecting those that do, but that's just not how I roll. But some people have said, okay, I do the different deities, but it's wrong to do Jesus. So if you say it's wrong to have Jesus as a deity, what makes you having Jesus as a deity, I'm talking in general, versus people having Oshun as a deity? What's the difference?
Well, I feel like there's a lot of people that practice hoodoo who do use Jesus as a deity, but they have to also remember that using Jesus was a cover-up in the old days. So a lot of people didn't get taught that Jesus was a cover-up from the old days, and they continue to use him as the literal Jesus. And a lot of times that information gets lost, and then their parents probably raised them Christian or Catholic, and then they wanted to become someone who practiced magic, and then they said, okay, well, I'll do hoodoo because I see that they use saints and Jesus, so I'm not too far from Christianity. And so they'll go ahead and use Jesus and the saints in their hoodoo or their Santeria ritual, and they never got the info that Jesus was a cover-up for Legba, you know what I'm saying? And they will continue to use Jesus in that energy, and even though they learned that it was a cover-up, they're so used to that Jesus energy and that deity that they were raised on and believe in and fear leaving, that they just use Jesus. They're not using the hoodoo cover-up Jesus. They're using the Jesus from the church.
Right. Now, you have said in some of your videos that you work with the aspect of some of the spirits. Do you work with the aspect of Jesus?
No.
And your reason why you don't work with his deity or his aspect is because you just have a personal preference not to?
Well, if I had to say anything bad about Jesus, I would say that a lot of things that I see culturally that are representative of Jesus have hurt more people than helped people. So I don't relate to his energy, but as a character, I feel like he was a great alchemist. He was very wise. He studied at the ancient mystery schools of Egypt, if he existed. But I don't value anything because everything he said in the Bible, Thoth to Hootie said it already. You know what I'm saying? So for me, he's just a student of an ancient Egyptian mystery school that came out and told the secrets. Okay, to me he's like so I don't, even if I don't even believe that he truly historically existed, they might have based his story on a character that might have existed, but I don't feel like he was any type of he may have been a composite of some sort. Yeah, I just don't feel like he was special enough and did enough, and then the church, used him to control people, to enslave people. So I can't get with that energy. Okay. and I like your answer quite a bit because I feel similar, and I guess because I was Christian for so many years, I don't want to backtrack. To me, it's kind of like backtracking, and that's just my personal sentiment. Now, I can't speak for anybody else. I'm just speaking for me. Mm-hmm. It makes me feel like I'm backtracking. But every now and then, out of habit, I'll say, Lord Jesus, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I just said Lord Jesus. Yeah, I say, oh my God, oh God. Yeah. But I don't say Jesus. I don't have a problem saying Jesus because I never said Jesus because I never related. You weren't a Christian. You were never a Christian. I was raised Catholic, but I would never wear. Are they Christians? Are Catholics Christians? I mean, I was everything. My mom changed religion like 10 times. She didn't even know what she was at one point. But I never wore a cross or nothing. I just never related. Not even when it was being I was being brainwashed. I just never accepted it. I was like, that's not right.
Good for you.
That ain't right. It don't sound
that's
right.
A great thing.
You know, and I would always reject it. My mom would make us read the Bible. I would be like, oh, I hate this. You know, ugh, this is so stupid. You know, I would just be upset. I say, if we gonna read the Bible, we gonna read Revelations. At least it's exciting. You know, so if we read the Bible, it would have to be Revelations. You know, and
were you a problem child, quote unquote, as far as being raised? Were you